BBC Radio Network.
The Morning Brew is brought to you by Omega XL. Live long, stay strong.
Yes, running into a brand new work day and brand new work week for many. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Monday, the 3rd of November, 2025. JW signing on, and indeed an action-packed and very informative program ahead. Thank you all for tuning in and spending the morning, allowing me to spend the morning with you and your family. It's going to be, as always, great conversation, and we get a chance to take in some of the calls. Coming off a weekend that was filled with lots of excitement and chatter, and of course the reality is we are in interesting times, and many would have been running up and down on Friday because obviously the word is out, the word would have been out of military being called to base, and oh my goodness, it was one of those weekends that will go down within recent history as eventful, even though there was no action, there was no kind of event, but people are on edge. And in that regard, we head to the front page of The Guardian this morning. The Minister of Homeland Security says, we won't leave TNT in the dark. And that comes after what I just mentioned was a weekend of rumors of war. Now, war is one thing, but the rumors, definitely, it's one that gets people very anxious. And remember, we had a conversation last week. Remember that conversation last week with Dr. Dan Douglas about this exact development, this exact scenario where many are nervous. There is this sense of, as mentioned, anxiety. The uncertainty is killing people. And I think there is that call not only from this side of the conversation via the seat I occupy every Monday to Friday, but many are asking for just communication, greater dialogue, just to ease some of the fears. But then the minister is suggesting, well, if there's nothing going on, there's nothing to talk about. But the reality is, when we look at Friday, people scrambling to get the children, people rushing the grocery. I go on Saturday morning to get some bread in the grocery, and I went earlier, 8:15. I said, I get up early and do a little weekend grocery list. Bread done, nothing. I said, if you see the place, I mean, people went into a kind of panic on Friday. And I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk more about that later on this morning. But indeed, the minister says at this point in time, we won't leave TNT in the dark, nothing to worry about. Relatives of the fishermen feared killed in the U.S. strike. Remember the men from Las Cuevas? Well, the families, they just did the missing people's report. And they did this, when I looked at the story, as a strategic move to ensure that the TTPS now will be engaged actively in an investigation. They will have to ask questions now and probably reach out to our American counterparts. Can remember the Minister of Foreign Affairs said last week there was no information on these said men. So as far as they're concerned, we can't confirm these men are dead because there is no body. Even though there was a memorial service for one of the victims a couple of weeks ago, it made all Al Jazeera, that particular story. That was on international news. And the claim from the government is that, well, we can't really look into this because the men, we don't know where they are. They're probably missing. So the family, did the due diligence to now report them missing. And I'm hoping that it might, or at least the family is hoping that it would force the hand of the authorities to look for the said men, or at least try to get some answers to their many questions. We head to the back page because I want to get to our conversations early this morning. And in the sporting field, we look at some action from yesterday's La Liga. Barcelona won this game, so congrats to them. Big wins also this weekend for Real Madrid, my My team, Arsenal, was on the winning side this weekend. That's on the international side of things. Locally, Defence Force, champions from last year's Tier 1 Trinidad and Tobago Professional League. After a kind of shaky start, a second draw in so many weeks, and seems like the teams going up against Defence Force are going in fearless. So it's going to be a very interesting local league. Of course, we go until next year with our professional football league. On the cricket side of things, congratulations to India, the Women's World Cup champions, and they won it on home soil against South Africa. Beautiful game yesterday. I'm really happy. I would have mentioned that last week, that they got over the Australian hurdle, which, you know, it's a tough one. And by virtue of beating Australia, made their way to the finals. And I think it was just one of those beautiful stories in sport. You're hosting a tournament at home and you're able to lift it on home soil. Congratulations indeed to the Indian women's cricket team winning the World Cup 50 overs tournament. We are to the brief on this Monday morning, Monday the 3rd, November 2025. And a beautiful picture. This is legacy here. A family portrait here of Lloyd and Norma Hart posing with their children and grandchildren during, hear this, the 70th wedding anniversary. That is indeed one for the record books. 70 years of marriage, and this grand celebration took place at the Revival Time Ministries, King's Wharf in San Fernando yesterday. And it's really a beautiful portrait here of a family of legacy, and every child and every grandchild is so happy, well, happy and blessed to have their grandparents and parents still around for the case of the children and, well, the children's children. So this is beautiful. 70 years of marriage, congratulations. Also, Tuco seeks funding to expand Calypso Workshop. More details here via The Guardian on page 3. Up next, every Monday we get into the Boss Report, the movers and shakers with the big business. Marjorie's up next with that, and then later on this morning we get a chance to touch base with Member of Parliament Marvin Gonzalez and former Minister of National Security on some of the public panic and tensions and the communication crisis that some are suggesting it's a crisis with communication via the government. We get a chance to expand on that and so much more with Marvin Gonzalez later on. But up next, your Boss Report.
Influencers don't sleep. Their whole waking life is a dream, a get-rich-quick money scheme. Bring your mobby pockets and get champagne. Drink up and come again. Watch celebrity investor cruising high. Honey does catch more than fly. It's how they're looking like AI. Fake profile set up to fool. Lucky I have sense and went to school. Rock so champagne, man, I ain't no tool. All of this looks so sus. I sipping my tea. That mark, bound to bust. Put money and get back double plus. Tell me, does that sound right? Take in front before in front take you. That is what the TTSEC is here for, to help protect investors like you and me. Check them at ttsec.org.tt. Make a complaint or file an anonymous tip. Take my advice and just don't stick.
The Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission. You invest, we protect, everyone benefits.
Magical Expressions Limited is the largest local importer and distributor of fresh cut stems, offering the widest range of beautiful flowers at the most affordable prices. Call us today at 701-6488, 701-6680, 728-6786, or visit our website to order.
PRW's Thanksgiving sale is now on this November. We're giving thanks to God and all of our local customers. Up to 75% discount on selected items. Join us for our family fun day on the 4th of November at our Orangwes location. Come, have a fun day with us and enjoy refreshments, free giveaways, games, and massive discounted prices. Tell your family and friends. Call us today at 285-9779.
Welcome back. Let's check in with Marjorie Seabaran for our Boss Report for today, Monday. Marjorie, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Boss Report. I am Marjorie Seabaran, and I'll be holding on for Cyril today. Today, we'll take a look at the 9-month performance of the international markets, with more focus on the U.S. market. It's been another strong performance for international markets and in particular the US market, where we've seen healthy capital appreciation in all indices in the 9-month period. So we'll start off with the S&P 500 and its performance in the 9-month period, up 13.7%. This follows two strong years in 2023 and 2024, 20-plus returns. In the last 4 to 5 years, the S&P have been up over 20% in each year. It's definitely a very strong performance. The NASDAQ up another 17.3%, continuing to ride the wave technology-related securities, and the Dow up 9.1%. It has not been smooth sailing for the indices for the course of the 9-month period. At the beginning of April, we would have seen sharp declines in all of the indices, between 10 and 15%, with the introduction of Liberation Day tariffs by the Trump administration. This would have impacted markets negatively, but with the suspension of the implementation of the tariffs around April 9th, we saw some recovery in the market, and we've seen that recovery continue on for the rest of the 9-month period, and closing off at the 9 months with very healthy returns as trade negotiations with a number of trading partners of the U.S. have been completed and successfully implemented by the different countries. When we look at sector performance of the U.S. index, we see mixed performance by some of the sectors. The consumer staples and the healthcare, both defensive sectors, underperforming significantly some of the other sectors. The consumer is in negative territory, minus 0.3%, and the healthcare only up 1.2%. The communication sector and the technology sector continues to do very well. The communication sector with companies such as Netflix, Meta, and Alphabet. And the technology sector, the biggest security in that sector will be NVIDIA, which crossed the $5 trillion market cap this week, as well as Microsoft, as well as some other large cap companies like Broadcom. The industrials with companies such as GE Aerospace and Caterpillar also performing very well, up 17.1%. In terms of earnings growth year on year for components of the S&P 500, we've seen aggregate earnings growth continue to be very healthy in the first 2 quarters of this year, up 13.7% year on year and 13.8%. Expectations for third quarter earnings growth is at 10.4% and a weakening in the last quarter of this year, 7.9% overall. Very strong earnings growth despite challenges both local and international in the U.S. market. This year, earnings growth for the S&P 500 is expected at 11%, following 12% last year. And for next year, a still healthy 14% earnings growth. And this is important when you look at current valuations. The U.S. market is a little rich by historical perspective. The current valuation at around 28 times PE multiple. Historically, the 5-year PE is at 25 times and the 10-year is at 22 times. But when you look at forward, the expectations by market analysts based on their earnings growth forecast is for the PE valuation around 22 based on 2026 earnings growth. So forward-looking, 15 months here, 15 months out, it's not as expensive, but definitely on a trailing basis, relatively expensive. But the views are mixed in that the investments in IT and the growth in the IT sector warrants a richer valuation. And generally, we've seen performance of the IT companies overall have been fairly strong. There are 1 or 2 exceptions, but it is supportive of market sentiments and valuations to some extent at this point in time. We switch our look at the performance of regional ETFs in the international space, and we've seen strong performance in most, if not all, the regions in the international markets, and this performance is both a combination of capital and currency appreciation. The US dollar would have fallen in a 9-month period around 9%, second major international currencies. And definitely, we've seen appreciation of many of the emerging market currencies against the US dollar. When we look at the Latin American index as represented by the ETF is up 38.2%, and this is, again, currency and capital appreciation. The Brazilian real is up 13% against the dollar, as well as the Mexican peso is up over 10% at the 9-month period. Last year, the Latin American index would have underperformed the market as the currencies would have taken significant hits. In the European market, the euro has appreciated around 11% at the 9-month period against the US dollar. And we've also seen strong capital appreciation by many of the markets, if not all of them, in the European space. The Asian market is also up year on year and much greater index performance than 9 months of last year, 26.4%. Most of this gains is capital appreciation. Currencies have not appreciated against the dollar as much as some of the other regions. And the US space, the S&P 500, it's up 30.7, a bit weaker than last year. The 9-month period is up 20.7. So generally, very strong performance across the board, and investors have definitely benefited from capital appreciation in all regions of the markets this year. When we look forward in this quarter and into the new year, some of the drivers that could impact market performance as well as market sentiments. A relative slowdown in GDP growth. IMF forecast GDP growth at 3.2% this year, global GDP growth that is, and next year 3.1%, and this follows 3.4% estimates for last year. And the US markets, the GDP forecast is for 2.1% this year and 2% next year. So marginal decline in GDP forecast at this point in time, but we don't expect this to have a significant impact on the market because it's still relatively decent GDP growth overall. Inflationary pressures could impact the U.S. market. Current inflation stands at around 3%. This as compared to the targeted rate of 2%. So inflationary pressures due in part to higher tariffs with the introduction of tariffs for imported goods. That has filtered down into the market and may impact the market going forward. And if the U.S. is unable to control inflation, the outlook for interest rates cut could be lowered. This year so far, in recent months, we've seen 2 interest rate cuts, and the expectations for a possible cut in December, not guaranteed, of course. And any cuts next year definitely will positively impact the markets, as a lower borrowing cost is always good for investments overall. Trade policy uncertainty, we should see hopefully a diminishing of the uncertainty, as this week there were positive trade negotiations between China and the U.S., China being the U.S. biggest trading partner, and that any instability in that relationship has definitely negatively impacted the market. So overall, hopefully positive sentiments in trading going forward, because trading policy uncertainty definitely has impacted this market this year. Geopolitical tensions that over the last few years, that has impacted the market, and any flare-up in any region, be it in Europe with the Russia-Ukraine tensions or Middle East, could again impact the market. So that's something always on the horizon investors should be mindful of. But generally, market sentiments continue to be relatively buoyant in the international space. We've seen marginal dips in the market, and any dip is always be short-lived, and markets have recovered. So we expect this to continue as we come to the end of the year and next year. Despite the rich valuations, we're seeing earnings growth, and this should filter into the overall market performance positive going forward. Next year, we may not see the level of appreciation we've seen this year, but definitely there is that possibility into the new year, as we've seen some relative stability, and I say relative, in market overall, and generally investor sentiments continues to be relatively positive. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You could call us, email us, or visit our website and see what we have available. Thank you for joining us this morning, and do have a wonderful day.
detergent smells nice while washing, but when you use the new Downy Intense fabric softener, with its new multi-capsule fragrance, it releases an intense scent that lasts twice as long. With the new Downy Intense, you'll enjoy a rich and delightful fragrance that keeps you feeling fresh 24/7.
Things don't always go as expected. Be ready with Trinry for auto, home, business and group life. Call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Huge insurance premium. Pay your premiums bit by bit with FlexiPay from Trinry. For more manageable auto, home and commercial insurance payments, call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Trinry. Premier insurance coverage for less.
Growing your food business begins here at Southern Food Basket Wholesale Distribution Center. The turnaround is fast, from container to cold storage to pickup trucks. And when we deliver, product integrity is maintained with our highly respected vehicle-powered chilling systems. So come on down to Southern Food Basket Wholesale Distribution Center, where a whole new experience awaits.
I don't know. I have no information or knowledge about that. I'll find out. Then there's a lot of speculation, not just here, not locally, everywhere. I mean, it's a situation that really demands everybody's attention. We will keep our eyes and ears peeled and act when we see it's appropriate.
Well, you know, Trinidad and Tobago is a very creative space. That clip actually became a meme over the weekend. Such was the, I would imagine, disbelief by many of the citizenry that the Prime Minister had no idea as to what was taking place on Friday, when many were in panic mode. People were picking up their children. There were calls left, right, and center. The grocery, as I mentioned, I went on Saturday morning, no bread to be had. So we ask ourselves, what's next, and how this week, the weeks ahead, and even Christmas will pan out, with clearly a building up of U.S. troops in the region, the Gerald Ford in the Caribbean waters, and President Trump in a 60-minute interview last evening suggesting, okay, he's not thinking of military action on land. However, he says Maduro's days are numbered. Go figure. I mean, obviously, these are some uncharted waters. We've never been here before. And to bring some perspective, and obviously for us to engage, I would say, in a very frank and honest discussion, because Marvin Gonzalez, who's here with me, of course, good morning to you, Member of Parliament, former Minister of National Security. You're in the House. You're in the House. You're there while these debates are happening. You're seeing this firsthand from that lower house perspective. I want to ask you first and foremost. Well, firstly, I want to say thanks for being here bright and early.
Thank you very much, Jason.
All right,
Thank you very
spend
much.
the morning.
Yeah.
But you think enough is being done on the opposition side? Enough force is being put on the government to change this narrative, to ask for communication? I mean, obviously, I know you can't go out and march at this point in time because it's a state of emergency, so that might be problematic on the legal front for anybody trying to march against what's happening. But I'm just looking at, from your standpoint, on the bench there, having these discussions, because you're in government, enough is being done to bring awareness to this moment? I mean, are you concerned with what's happening at this point in time?
Thank you very much, Jason. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and thank you for this platform for us to have a very interesting discussion on these very pertinent matters. So you've asked a very important question, whether the opposition is doing enough in the current context to bring pressure and to bring prominence to the issues that are affecting us, these very, very important and critical issues. Now, we have to operate within the confines of the law, and insofar as the Parliament is concerned, we are confined by the standing orders of the Parliament, where those matters can be raised. The standing orders allow for questions, urgent questions to be filed, questions for oral answers, questions for written responses, as well as motions. On Private Members' Day, you can have a specific motion where the opposition has the opportunity to highlight some of those issues so the public can be educated. So let's harken back to last week, Friday. I was at a House committee meeting, and last week, Friday, around 11, and I started receiving a number of calls and WhatsApp messages about the state of affairs and the panic that is taking place in the capital city, the traffic, the gridlock, and what have you. And whilst I was there, I made a decision because the House was scheduled to resume or to have a sitting at 1:30. And according to the standing orders, you have until 12:30 to file urgent questions for the government to respond. So I made a decision to file a question to the Minister of Defense to explain whether or not the Defense Force was placed on alert and soldiers were instructed to return to base, because that's the information that was coming to me. And I thought that given the state of panic in the country, the government, through urgent questions posed by the opposition, will have an opportunity to speak not to the PNM, but to the country on this very important matter. So the question was filed, and it was approved. And when the hearing started, I was given the opportunity to pose the question to the Minister of Defense. Can the Minister of Defense explain whether soldiers were instructed to return to base immediately? And not surprisingly, the Minister of Defense stood up and he invoked Standing Order 27(1)G, which allows a minister not to answer any question if the minister thinks that it is in the public's interest not to answer the question. Now, one would assume, Jason, that given the state of panic in the capital city and throughout the entire country, where international news media were reporting that there was going to be an imminent strike on Venezuela, and citizens of this country observing and reading what is taking place, and your army, your police service have all been called out to return to base with immediate effect, obviously citizens will go into a state of panic. And you would expect that a responsible government will take any opportunity that they can, especially in the parliament, to speak clearly to the people, even if it means to do so to allay the fears of the people. And the minister invoked Standing Order 27(1)G not to answer the question, and that is a very serious particular issue.
Well, I'm looking at a response from the Minister of Homeland Security. He was at the opening of the new location of Daisy's Exclusive yesterday in Tunapuna, and he said that social media is to blame for fire, well, for putting fire into, well, fuel into this flame of panic and stuff. And also the Prime Minister, I was able to kind of dissect what she would have mentioned over the weekend, that, well, if there's nothing going on, there's nothing to report. So I guess in their, through their lens, no need to come out really and address the public if nothing is happening. Clearly, you see it through different lens.
Oh, it's you know, I sat in the parliament and I listened to some of the government spokespersons, including the Minister of Homeland Security, because the Minister of Homeland Security appeared before the Standing Finance Committee of the parliament, and he was asked pertinent questions with respect to allocations made to his ministry. And the same Minister of Homeland Security, on numerous occasions, invoked national security consideration not to answer questions, to duck from answering questions. So when it is convenient to them, and of course it is in most instances, I want you to observe, and I want the country to observe the proceedings in the parliament, especially the Minister of Homeland Security and the Minister of Defense. They have started off their career, their political career, by looking at invading, or rather invoking standing orders to not answer to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and not to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I was shocked when I heard the Minister of Homeland Security saying, you know, to ignore social media and stuff like that. You know, the Minister of Homeland Security should check back a couple of years ago when the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, told the country, do not depend on the national media, the traditional media for your information. You should depend on social media for your information. She told the country this when she served as leader of the opposition a couple of years ago, encouraging the population that you should get your news from social media as opposed to traditional media. So when I heard him saying that yesterday, you know, I was taken aback but not surprised, because the UNC utilized social media, especially when they were in opposition, and even more so now, to spew, misinformation and disinformation into the public. So they will say one thing when it is convenient to them, and they will say something else when, of course, it is convenient to them.
I mean, obviously, I'm seeing on the screen there via ticker tape communication crisis. Do you think there is indeed one going on? I mean, there is a lack of information, yes. But in terms of some mixed signals and some of the utterances, I look at, obviously, Minister Phillips, when he would have mentioned nuking Venezuela, then yes. He had to kind of peg back. Of course, some of the Prime Minister's utterances in the early part of this would have been very strong. I've recognized she's toned it down a lot within recent time. Yes. Just the communication around what's happening at this point in time. Are we in crisis mode?
There's a serious vacuum of information in Trinidad and Tobago, and with it, a vacuum of leadership in Trinidad and Tobago. When I made my contribution in the SOE debate on Friday, I told the government that you are not speaking to the population. You are invoking standard orders in order to evade holding yourself to account, and you are not speaking clearly to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, when you don't speak and you don't take the people into your confidence, then they have to rely on other sources for their information. I mean, the Prime Minister, when she came in, she had her regular news conferences, and you can now count how many of her weekly press conferences that she attends. The Prime Minister is not speaking to the country. You would recall a couple of weeks ago when the U.S. Embassy issued a release advising citizens to stay away from premises owned and operated by the U.S. Embassy. And again, 2 or 3 Saturdays ago, there was widespread panic in the population. And the government, through its major spokesperson like the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, and the Minister of Homeland Security, refused to speak to the country on this very important issue. These are just some of the few examples in the SOE debate. The government is yet to explain to the country the basis upon which it decided to extend the state of emergency. And I told the Attorney General, speak to the population, take the population into your confidence. And when we ask questions through the standing orders, urgent questions and what have you, they invoke the privileges that are available to them so as not to disclose information to the public. So there's a serious vacuum of information and leadership in the country.
So this 3-month extension, and I want to pivot to that for a few before we come back to the current geopolitical uncertainty. Yeah. Through my own research, I've learned that indeed if they plan to extend prior to the next 3 months, so if we're going now with the state of emergency into next year, if there are plans to extend beyond the 3 months that we're currently on, they will now need a special majority which will now involve the upper house and the Senate. Is that the case?
That's correct. So they would need to pass any further extension with a special majority in the lower house, which they have. But on this occasion, on the next occasion, they definitely will have to go up to the Senate. And the government does not have the required special majority in order to pass it. So they would need to rely on the opposition as well as the independent senators for any further extension of this current state of emergency.
Do you feel any ease with the state of emergency? Is there any difference on the ground when you talk to your constituents, when you move around? We all live here, Marvin, so do you think it's necessary?
Let me start by saying, Jason, this state of emergency was called for a specific purpose. When this state of emergency was called, some days before, the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of Homeland Security were both telling the country that crime was under control and that there should be no need to panic, where crime and the national security forces, they are in control where crime is concerned. As a matter of fact, they were pointing to statistics that showed a decline in some serious crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. But a couple of days after they were boasting, we woke up to a morning hearing that there is a state of emergency. The first person or public official to speak to the country was the Commissioner of Police. I think it was somewhere around 9 or 10 o'clock a morning. And he was at pains to explain to the country that this state of emergency was not called in response to the criminal situation or crime in Trinidad and Tobago. It was called for a specific purpose. And let me explain what the the statement by the president said with respect to the state of emergency, and I quote, "Criminal gangs in the island of Trinidad and Tobago are likely to increase acts of violence on a scale so extensive that it threatens persons and will endanger public safety. Persons already incarcerated are actively engaged in coordinated acts of violence that target the state and state actors. Having considered the information provided and given the above premises, I was certain that action needed to be taken or is immediately threatened by any person of such a nature and so extensive a scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety to the extent that warranted a declaration of a state of public emergency in Trinidad and Tobago." Very serious matter. That was the basis upon which a state of emergency was declared in Trinidad and Tobago. It was immediate, it was dangerous, and the president was satisfied that we needed to declare a state of emergency in order to deal with a specific threat. Exactly what the Commissioner of Police said. After the state of emergency was declared, weeks or months after, the Commissioner of Police told the country that the threat was neutralized. So it meant then that the circumstances under which the state of emergency was declared, according to the Commissioner of Police, no longer exist because it was neutralized. So when you hear of murders, for example, in the month of October last month, you had 30-something murders. You heard of threats to ministers and all of the serious crimes that normally would happen outside of a state of emergency continue to exist. But let us not be distracted by that, because that calls for a separate discussion. Because the state of emergency had nothing to do with the murders that were taking place in the country and the kidnappings and the home invasions and what have you. That calls for a separate discussion. So when the government can come and say, well, we have a reduction in murder by 40-something%. I mean, we had a reduction 30-something% at the last state of emergency called by the PNM when by April, before the election was called. So let us not confuse the discussion. This state of emergency was called for a specific purpose, and according to the Commissioner of Police, the circumstances and the threat was neutralized. And therefore, I asked the Attorney General, you tell us whether this threat, because if you are asking for this state of emergency to be extended, then it meant that the threat that we spoke about in July still exists. Up to now, no one has been arrested for this threat. And you're talking about threat to persons in the judiciary, threat to senior law enforcement officials, according to the circumstances on which it was called, and threat to members of the prison service and what have you. No one was arrested. No one was charged. And the government, through their spokesperson in the parliament on Friday, admitted that so far not one person was arrested on being suspected of being involved in this particular threat. So you are extending the state of emergency, you are extending this state of emergency, and you have not again communicated with the public clearly whether and what you plan to do with this particular threat.
What's your feeling on the extension? What do you think is the ethos behind this particular extension, and do you anticipate we will be in a perpetual state of emergency where there will be calls for extension upon extension going forward?
And this is exactly what the government is doing. And it was the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West, MP Stuart Young, in his contribution, I remember him saying and telling the country that we have to be careful that we do not normalize state of emergencies in order to fight crime, because that is not what the Constitution envisaged for the declaration of a state of emergency. As a matter of fact, in Jamaica, the Jamaican government was doing the same thing, declaring state of emergency in certain parishes.
But it's mostly, it's for a particular area as opposed to the country.
In particular areas.
And I guess that will call for Trinidad to go do a constitutional kind of adjustment for that to take place.
It's very similar. It's the same constitutional provision that we've declared a state of emergency in Trinidad. Our constitution in Jamaica is very similar. The wording of that particular aspect of the constitution is very similar. But the point I was about to make is that this matter was tested in the Jamaican court. because the police commissioner and certain officials of law enforcement talk about, well, we had a reduction in gang activities, we have a reduction in murders and what have you. And the court held that that is not the basis for the declaration of a state of emergency, because you have laws on the books to deal with gang activities. You have laws on the books to deal with illegal trade of firearms and what have you. And the declaration of a state of emergency to do what you can normally do in law enforcement and other laws on the book. And therefore, the court held that the declaration of a state of emergency in Jamaica was unconstitutional.
Interesting you mentioned the word law. I know that you're also a legal mind, and we look at the developments with the boats, fishing vessels being blown up. We have seen in the last couple of weeks what's going on in our southern Caribbean waters. Of course, the wording I recognize from the U.S. Is allowing this because they have now been deemed as narco-terrorists, and under that terrorist umbrella and bracket, they're using military force. From a legal framework, and with our support, obviously, because the utterances from our leadership and the suggestion was to kill them violently, at least in the earlies. We have seen a kind of toning down, as it were, of the rhetoric. But nonetheless, through the legal lens, could there be any fallout for us, per se, any consequences for us supporting this kind of action? And do you anticipate this is all part of the theater of war for a greater push, which more or less people are suggesting regime change in Venezuela?
When you listen to the spokespersons and the politicians in America, it's clear that this whole buildup of military activity is geared towards regime change in Venezuela. And so that's the main intent. But let us go back to the issue of the blowing up of the boats. Governments need to be guided by international law, human rights laws, and laws that guide law enforcement in treating with those particular matters. With the 60-something odd persons that have been killed out in the Caribbean Pacific Ocean, there is no evidence that those persons were involved in the illegal drug trade. And as a matter of fact, let us say that the PNM government and the PNM as a party and the PNM in government has always cooperated with U.S. authorities and our international partners around the world, in Latin America and in the Caribbean, in the fight against narco-trafficking and the drug trade, human trafficking. That has always been. I served as Minister of National Security for a short time, and within that short time, I had very intensive discussions with our partners in the U.S. and around the world to treat with this particular issue. This is a law enforcement issue, and law enforcement is guided by international law. And if persons are involved in illegal drugs, the use of force is guided by clear policies and our international laws. That the first what you try to do is to arrest, detain, gather the evidence, and prosecute those persons. And the use of lethal force is also governed by clear protocols. That you do so as a last resort when the lives of law enforcement might be placed in jeopardy. So far, with all of the killings, there's no evidence that those persons were involved in drugs. Not 1 gram of cocaine was seized, and all we hear is that those persons were allegedly involved in drug trafficking. The United Nations, last week Friday, the United Nations and Human Rights Chief, the chief has condemned the U.S. military strikes on vessels allegedly carrying drugs in the Caribbean Pacific, and it says that the attacks violate international law and amount to extrajudicial killings. These are very, very serious issues.
You know, I recall when Duterte was in charge of Philippines, He's now before the ICC.
That's correct.
For extrajudicial killings also. He was very hardline towards drug use and their particular scourge in the Philippines and the issues they would have had. I wonder where this will end up. I mean, obviously it's the U.S. And I've framed all of this to ask the question, do we ultimately have a choice? Because the U.S., as we know, they operate via different rules. They are indeed the superpower of not only this region, but clearly the world. President Trump in his second term is coming in very sharp, no holds barred, no guardrails. Do we ultimately, as a small developing state, Trinidad and Tobago, with our proximity to Venezuela, could we have really said no from the onset? Because clearly if there's going to be any kind of military intervention, we obviously would be a staging ground. It's inevitable. Do we, as Trinbagonians, as the government, did our Prime Minister have any particular choice in this matter from the onset? Your honest opinion on that?
Of course, the Prime Minister has a choice. The Prime Minister has to demonstrate leadership. As a matter of fact, Trinidad and Tobago is a sovereign, independent, democratic country. And our policies are guided by the UN Charter. We also are a member of the Latin American Caribbean States of Nations, where our current Prime Minister, when she served as Prime Minister between 2010 and 2015 and 2014, went to Havana and signed the proclamation that declared the entire Caribbean as a zone of peace. And Trinidad and Tobago has been a leader, a voice in the region, calling for us to operate as one voice with over 7 million people, where we can assert our affairs, where we can protect our independence as a region, especially when it comes to dealing with big global players like America, Russia, and China. And we have always operated our foreign policy based on these established principles. And as a result of that, this entire region has been declared and has been protected as a zone of peace, operating with the United Nations Charter on non-intervention in the affairs of sovereign nations, to declare this Caribbean as a zone of peace. And therefore, in speaking to large powers, we have hold true and hold faith to these fundamental principles. And because of that, there have been stability throughout this region for over 50 years. This current Prime Minister, for reasons best known to her, has moved away from these fundamental principles, and by so doing has jeopardized not only the lives of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but the entire region. And it is going to take decades to repair. Imagine, Jason, we are now operating with the prospect of imminent war in this region. And you are hearing leading politicians and ministers in Venezuela threatening that if the U.S. should invade Venezuela, they are going to attack us in Trinidad and Tobago because we have allowed our space to be utilized by a foreign power to attack the Venezuelan people.
We are clearly isolated in that regard. What do you think could happen in the short, medium, and long term as it pertains to our stance within the region? Trinidad and Tobago, we have been leaders. We are considered ourselves and Jamaica, larger islands. You know, we kind of set the tone and set the momentum for our brothers and sisters. What's your take through your political lens on this stance and where we are right now in the region, and how, well, if at all, it could pose any major damage for us in the short, medium, and long term?
The trust and the confidence that Trinidad and Tobago always enjoyed with its partners in the region and in Latin America and around the world, that has been damaged with irreversible consequences.
Irreversible, you say?
Yes. We will not be trusted as a people because our partners looking on as what is taking place in Port of Spain, they don't care whether or not it is the PNM or the UNC form the government. They are seeing Port of Spain taking certain policy decisions that are at variance with what it held on to for the last 50 or 60 years since our independence. the UN Charter, the declaration and the proclamation of this zone of peace. These are things that took years in the making to weave together so that we can operate as a bloc, as an independent nation with a voice in the entire region. It takes years to piece that together. And you are seeing that all of these hard work that took place over the years since our independence is being reversed with serious consequences. And I can say that the next government will have a lot of work to do to repair the damage that has been done under Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. We will not be trusted as an ally, as a people, as a friend. We will be looked at with grave suspicion, not only by the Venezuelans, but by our colleagues in CARICOM and around the world, because of the manner in which we are dealing with our foreign policy. And I dare say, it may take decades for the world and the region to trust us in Trinidad and Tobago again. It is a very serious matter, and it is one that citizens should look at seriously. This is not a time for us to take positions because we support the PNM, or we support the UNC, or we support any other political organization. This is Trinidad and Tobago. And if we love this country, we have to demand of this particular government that you hold fast to our traditions, you respect the UN Charter, you respect our position in CARICOM, and that you ensure that our voices are in alignment with our partners in the region. Because when this time is past, and there is no longer a military confrontation in this part of the region, Venezuela will still be our neighbor. Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, they will still be our neighbors. And we have our work cut out for us to clean up the mess that has been created by Kamla Persad-Bissessar and her incompetent government.
As we look to wrap things up, MP Gonzalez, just to speak probably directly to your constituents and by extension the nation as to this moment of uncertainty, is there any silver lining at all in this very dark cloud? Again, we're not too sure what tomorrow, what next week will bring. It's really uncharted waters, as I mentioned at the start of the conversation. But are there any words at this point in time to alleviate some of the panic and fear? And you know, they always say in time to come there will be wars and rumors of wars. Yeah. Well, we're in the latter right now, rumors of war. Any closing remarks in that regard? Ease the nation.
Yeah, I want to inform the country, and thank you for that question. Because, you know, as you walk around, Jason, and people ask you, what can we do? Can we call for a referendum to force the government? Can we, what does the law provide us so that we, the people, can take charge of our circumstances because of the fears and that are currently gripping the nation at this point in time? This is an opportunity for us to really rediscover our independence and what independence means for us. That even though we operate under certain constitutional principles where we go to the polls and we elect our leaders, governance is a day-to-day responsibility not only for the government, but it's a day-to-day responsibility for every single citizen. And therefore, this period of time calls for all sectors in our national community, the churches, all religious organizations, all NGOs, all community-based organizations, all citizens of goodwill, to come together and demand that our government operate within the confines of our Constitution and hold fast to our fundamental principles of the UN Charter and the declaration of the entire region of a zone of peace, and to encourage our government to act in a responsible way where you can speak to the authorities in Venezuela and speak to our partners in the US and resolve all of these issues and conflicts with a view to an outcome of peace and stability in Trinidad and Tobago. But if we sit back and allow the government to run roughshod over our international affairs and our diplomatic affairs, then we will be in serious problem. This is an opportunity for us to come together as a country, regardless of whichever political party you support. Because if a missile lands in Port of Spain or anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago, all of us will be placed in jeopardy. And this is a time where we put aside, and we ought to put aside the politics, and bring this country together and put pressure on the government so that they do not continue to mislead us, that they speak to us clearly, and they take positions that are in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we reverse and we pull ourselves from this brink that we have found ourselves because of the manner in which they have operated and the manner in which they have mismanaged our diplomatic affairs.
Member of Parliament Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Appreciate it, man.
Indeed. And we will continue with this very important conversation during the course of the week. Again, Trinidad and Tobago, we are here. We'll try to make sense of all what's taking place. And by all means, we want you to lend your voice to the discussion after the news update at 7. Catch you on the other side with our open forum. See you soon.
If you live with diabetes, your pancreas works overtime every single day. Between our rich foods and busy lives, chronic inflammation can sneak in, stressing the pancreas.
Protecting your pancreas from inflammation is a smart way to support healthy blood sugar management.
Sugar equals chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation equals insulin resistance. Insulin resistance equals diabetes. How do we combat chronic inflammation? Through lifestyle changes. Then, and only then, make sure you're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids.
Always consult a qualified medical professional before starting any supplements.
Magical Expressions Limited is the largest local importer and distributor of fresh cut stems, offering the widest range of beautiful flowers at the most affordable prices. Call us today at 701-6488, 701-6680, 728-6786, or visit our website to order.
Food Basket. Food Basket, nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh producers, everything fantastic. For everyday low price, things real nice. Come in once, but to come back twice. Wholesale, retail, everything for you. A real much I wanna shop fair go view. Food Basket, the nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh producers, everything fantastic. Food Basket.
Marketplace Champlain, where shopping is a pleasure and the price is right.
PRW's Thanksgiving sale is now on this November. We're giving thanks to God and all of our local customers. Up to 75% discount on selected items. Join us for our Family Fun Day on the 4th of November at our Orangwes location. Come, have a fun day with us and enjoy refreshments, free giveaways, games, and massive discounted prices. Tell your family and friends. Call us today at 285-9779.
Good morning, I'm Sonia Gray with Headline News on CNC3 and the TPC Radio Network. Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander is laying the blame for panic buying and long lines on Friday, sparked by international reports of imminent U.S. strikes on Venezuela and the call-out of the Defense Force at the feet of social media. He's also dismissing the criticism of the government's response to the panic from national security experts.
Everybody chiming in and coming in and making all kind of statements, and all I view it as is just a whole bunch of rubbish, really. Because if you have that responsibility and you have the information as to what is happening in terms of your people, we will not leave you.
However, one of those experts is hitting back. Former National Security Minister and former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith is telling the minister his approach is incorrect.
Sometimes it is hearsay, sometimes it is mischief, sometimes yes, but what is required is for those responsible to immediately put some degree of assurance to the public. It was not done. Even the Prime Minister did not know what was happening, so something went wrong.
Griffith says the government and its supporters needed to be mature in the face of these criticisms, as it ultimately is in the best interest of the country. The head of the National Nurses Association is doubling down on his position about staffing at one of the country's most actively used public health facilities. Eddie Stewart says the recent challenges experienced by nurses to get relieved from duty prompted him to to once again bring the issue of nursing shortages to the fore.
And I want to reiterate, NCRH is one of the worst in terms of staffing complement. So much so, on an average, a ward would require 20 to 24 nurses to operate on a daily basis over a period of a month. You would require 20 to 24 nurses on a shift, not on a shift, but over a period of time. However, NCRHA, when you watch their rosters, they have something like 8 to 10 nurses.
Stewart, who has been a consistent voice highlighting the shortage for several years, says not only are patients being placed at risk, but so too the existing pool of nursing personnel. However, chairman of the NCRHA, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, is accusing Stewart of creating unnecessary panic in the health sector.
12 nurses did not turn up, and 11 enrolled nursing assistants. 3 ENAs did not turn up. And we made arrangements from the pool of nursing to cover those patients. So to indicate that don't send your families and so on, that EWMSC is grossly irresponsible and unwise for a person of his authority to be making those statements.
Dr. Gopi Singh acknowledged that authorities were trying to resolve the issue of nursing shortages across the health sector and called on the TTNNA's president to take part in urgent discussion on the matter. 2 men were shot and killed Saturday evening along Sun Valley Extension, Lacano Road, Lower Santa Cruz. Dead are Angelo Leandre and Jeremiah Brito, both from Lacano. Officers of the San Juan Police Station were on mobile patrol around 8:20 p.m. when they received reports of a shooting in the area. They found 31-year-old Leandre lifeless at the side of the road. Residents told them Brito had been rushed to the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex by a female resident. Officers went to the hospital where they were informed that Brito died around 9 p.m. It was reported that Leandre was washing his car when several gunmen walked up and opened fire on him. Brito was shot in the melee. The gunmen escaped on foot. Investigations are continuing. Those were your 7 a.m. news headlines. We'll have another news update at 8 a.m. on the TBC Radio Network.
Make home yours every day with Courts. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, oh, oh. Get value for your money. Oh, oh. Courts have the best quality. Home is what you make it. Best prices and good credit. Oh, Courts have it all.
Courts has what you need to make home yours. You can get it all with easy payment plans using Courts Ready Finance. Courts, make home yours.
Welcome to Food Basket.
Why are you still living with bad odors? Instantly refresh your spaces with Febreze. Smell like leftover fried food? Instant freshness. Febreze, your home smelling fresh and clean. Find the limited edition at your favorite store or supermarket.
5 minutes after 7 on this Monday morning, let's check in with our health tip for the day. And after the health tip, we take your calls live.
The Daily Health Tip, brought to you by Omega XL, where health is wealth. Inflammation serves as your body's natural defense against threats. But when it lingers, it becomes chronic and can lead to major health issues, including type 2 diabetes. Chronic inflammation affects the body's ability to manage insulin, a hormone crucial for regulating blood sugar. Over time, this inflammation can cause insulin resistance, a key factor in the development of diabetes. Managing blood sugar levels becomes increasingly difficult as insulin resistance grows. This progression not only places a tremendous strain on the body's metabolic system, but also heightens the risk of severe complications such as kidney damage, heart disease, and nerve damage. To reduce the risk of inflammation-related diabetes, it is essential to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Diet plays a pivotal role. Foods low in processed sugars and high in fiber can help reduce blood sugar spikes and inflammation. Incorporating physical activity into your daily routine also helps to stabilize blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity. Furthermore, managing stress and getting adequate sleep each night are crucial in preventing chronic inflammation. Both excessive stress and lack of sleep can increase inflammation and disrupt blood sugar levels, creating a cycle that further impacts insulin resistance. By understanding the link between chronic inflammation and diabetes, adopting healthier eating habits, staying active, and managing stress, you can help prevent or manage diabetes more effectively. This proactive approach is vital for maintaining overall health and preventing further complications. This health tip was brought to you by Omega XL. Live long, stay strong. Celebrity Health Secrets with Giselle Laurent.
I have found that together with exercising, getting enough sleep, and a diet rich in omega-3s can definitely help you live a healthier and happier life. Omega XL provides pure, powerful, potent care.
The Daily Health Tip, brought to you by Omega XL, where health is wealth.
Well, health is wealth. Sincere thanks. Let's open the lines, give you a chance to get into the conversation. What was your whole mindset? Obviously, Friday. Tell us, feel free, time for you to share. Let's start to Diego Martin. Good morning.
Good morning, Jason.
Morning, Diego Martin. I'm listening.
And I had to call you this morning, and I'm clapping back at the president of the TTNRA, Mr. Edie, and you know Edie cinemas with another person.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go into there in mid-Africa, that name. And I deliberately choose that word because his integrity, the TTNRA president, is compromised, is bordering on lack of integrity and dishonesty. During the COVID, you remember he made a statement discriminating against non-vaccinated patients for the ICU. That was a color statement. He being the head of the president of the Nursing Association, he said that about our citizens who did not want to take the vaccine. Last year, the JSC had an investigation into why doctors are pushed to go into, why patients are pushed to go to private practice. And this statement recently about the shortages of nurses in the NCRA is one of the investigative information. I don't think Paul Richards got it. I don't believe he made a presentation to the DSC last year where they wanted to know why patients decide to go to private institutions and doctors recommend them from the public sector to go there. So ED is making public mischief, and public mischief in a state of emergency needs strong intervention by the authority. And this comes closely to the chaos created by social media for the panicking on Friday. So I'm calling on the TTPS to investigate the mischief that Edie Stewart of the TTNRA made. I'll go and have a nice morning.
All the best, Diego Martin. I heard the statement Edie would have mentioned the shortage of staff. Of course, the chairman, Tim Gopi Singh, would have countered Edie's claims, but indeed there are shortages within the nursing sector. I have friends and people who are close to me who work in the space, and they tell me with no fear of contradiction that they are being pushed to the limit. So I guess it's one of those circular arguments, and I guess we could have Edie Stewart come in at some point later on to clarify. And if Mr. Gopi Singh wants to come in also, by all means, he is very much welcome to be part of it so we can get some clarity on the issue. Who's out there? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Jason.
Welcome. I'm listening.
Okay, so I am calling not to pick... I'm calling in not to really pick a side on anything because I like to be, diplomatic, and I don't like to make assumptions if I don't have all of my information. But what I'm calling about is the importance of our history. And the fact that we have had a history in the Caribbean of U.S. intervention from as early as the 1800s. And I am advising our general public that we should read up on our history and read up on it from a Caribbean perspective, not from a Eurocentric, not from an American perspective, but from a Caribbean perspective, so that we can be more informed when we are making our comments and when we are making our decisions. And pretty much, I want to advocate that history and doing history at the primary and secondary school level is critical, especially in understanding what is happening in our world today.
Yeah, definitely. I support that. History was actually my favorite subject at school. And when we look at history and you study it in depth and you learn from it, most importantly, you don't repeat it. Because most times history is, we have seen it time and time again where history repeats itself. And that comes from a place of ignorance. I think if you don't know what's happening, and this is not only just geopolitical history, we're talking about sometimes family history also, understanding your foundation, where you're from, what happened within certain, with certain personalities within your family, your community, and by extension, your country. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your commentary. Let's head to Pleasantville. We head down to the Southland. Good morning, Pleasantville.
Morning, Jason.
Morning, my brother. Go ahead, man. I'm listening.
Jason, what I'm noticing here, Jason, is it would appear to me that our country is on what we call the name plate. I think we are not running as we should. Yeah. So, Jason, what I'm looking at is I'm seeing where Mr. Sturge is saying that there's no official statement has been issued regarding this brief activation and this subsequent stand down that we had, and that the Prime Minister now has to be briefed. I don't know when last we had a meeting of the National Security Council. I'm not seeing that reported anywhere. And it would also seem to me, Jason, that this seems to be a distraction. All this was going on now with this Venezuela issue and this extension of the state of emergency and all of this. The country is in chaos. People are panicking out there. It would seem to me, Jason, that this is a distraction of what this is used, deliberately being used by the government as a distraction on what's really taking place in this country.
And what's that?
As regards our governance.
And what's that exactly? The distraction is from
the distraction, what is happening now with all of this news we are hearing about imminent invasion in Venezuela, and people are out there panic buying, and this is cause for concern.
But remember, in all fairness, Pleasantville, this is happening. These decisions are being made from Washington, far removed from Trinidad.
Listen, Jason, we are hearing via social media, and what we are hearing from Washington, what we are hearing, it is not actually correct because we are getting it mainly from social media. We are hearing where this is happening. We are seeing where the Miami newspaper is printing something. We are seeing where Donald Trump is saying that this isn't so. So we need to get the head of the National Security Council, who is the Prime Minister of this country, to address the public and take questions from the media on what's really happening. We are hearing where Assistant Commissioner Simon is issuing circulars. Benjamin is issuing memorandums. We don't know what's really going on. Sturge is saying something else, but we're not hearing from the Prime Minister. She is there speaking with Mr. On some talk show. This is not acceptable, Jason. And the country is in chaos economically. We are seeing what's happening with our revenue in the country and the potential of what's going to happen with our revenue. So this, to me, is a distraction. It's being deliberately used to extend the state of emergency. And it's a distraction of what's really happening in our country as regards governance.
Well, thank you.
This is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Pleasantville. I appreciate the call. We take one more. Let's start to Tabakit. Mr. Tabakit, good morning.
A pleasant Monday morning to you, Mr. Jason Williams. Good Monday morning.
Good morning, morning to you.
For time, let me say this. While I hear the Member of Parliament, Marvin Gonzalez, I do not share his perspective, and I'll tell you why. To the end of the day, the Honorable Roger Alexander, Homeland Security Minister, he's in a position where he sits with the National Security Council to have information. And he's correct. Lots of the information came out there. It was peddled by misinformation on social media. And I'm saying, while I hear Marvin Gonzalez, I am not questioning his integrity not to speak. But at the same time, he coming here and saying, look, so much things about the government, and there is so much to digress. And I'm saying, why not the government cannot be on point too with certain information? And he would have asked a question in the parliament, and he should know better as a former national security minister. There is certain deep national security questions which cannot be answered even though you have parliamentary privilege. Look, Mr. Jason Williams, to make a long story short, you in the media, and you would know, it have times you have to fact check certain things. And as a responsible minister, Roger Alexander, and the Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Kamala Prasad-Bissessa, they just can't come out, because you remember, anything they say, they will now add to the fuel of panic and euphoria in the country. And I want to say, on Friday, the Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Prasad-Bissessa, and Roger Alexander and Wayne Sturge, I think they handled professionally. They could not have do the same as social media to panic the country. I am saying
No, Tabakit, yes, I want you to stay with me for a few. Let's engage just for a minute again, because, honest, I'm just saying, but I'm thinking that at least someone should give an answer, because anyone could ask a question. For example, last week I asked the opposition leader your question, your concern about her meeting with the Venezuelan ambassador, right? So that was, I remember you brought up that, and I said, you know what, because it's such a pertinent talking point, I put forward the question. She could have ignore the question. She answered. I hope the answer was able to suffice. But nonetheless, I'm looking at this current scenario, and I think that somebody, whether in Parliament or outside the Parliament, could have given a response that could have just cooled the temperature a little bit, because people were really in panic mode last week, Tabakit.
I hear you. And can I respond to you quickly for time, because it's such a program?
Really quick.
Look, Aka Samaru and Kejan Haynes, and you said in front of the Parliament, they put the question to the Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Prasad-Bissessa, and she did spoke to the media. I don't know if you would have missed it.
No, so she said she didn't know what's going on, and I don't think that was the response people were looking for.
Well, besides, she said she don't know what's going on. She went on to say there is no need to panic, and there is nothing onwards. And if someone who heads the National Security Council is telling citizens, look, there is no need to worry, no need to panic, as far as she knows, because she heads the National Security Council, nothing is taking place. Well, I don't know what that other people expected of her. But I'm saying here, to make a long story short, Mr. Journalist, my dear good friend Jason Williams, I am saying we have to tone down the rhetoric on social media and stop misinformation. That's my perspective.
Thank you.
I thank you for giving Tabakit voice.
Of course. You're most welcome, Tabakit. Always great to hear from you. Let's continue the conversation probably tomorrow or Wednesday. Thank you so much, Tabakit. Pleasantville, to the lady who's mentioned the importance of history, and our first caller from Diego Martin this morning. Welcome again to the Morning Brew, folks. And indeed, we keep the open forum going. Once we get the chance, we get that conversation going and give you a chance to put your perspective in. Up next, a very important talking point. We look at what's happening within our schools. Are we seeing any kind of impact with the officer's position there now? Because school violence is still very much in the conversation. With me, the president of the NPTA, Walter Stewart. He joins me live next.
If you live with diabetes, your pancreas works overtime every single day. Between our rich foods and busy lives, chronic inflammation can sneak in, stressing the pancreas.
Protecting your pancreas from inflammation is a smart way to support healthy blood sugar management.
Sugar equals chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation equals insulin resistance. Insulin resistance equals diabetes. How do we combat chronic inflammation? Through lifestyle changes. Then, and only then, make sure you're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids.
Always consult a qualified medical professional before starting any supplements.
Things don't always go as expected. Be ready with Trinry for auto, home, business and group life. Call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Huge insurance premium. Pay your premiums bit by bit with FlexiPay from Trinry. For more manageable auto, home and commercial insurance payments, call us at 800-TRIN or visit trinry.com today. Trinry, premier insurance coverage for less.
Step into ABC Doors and Windows, where quality meets variety. Discover premium wooden, steel panel, fiberglass, and steel security doors alongside aluminum, UPVC, and steel windows designed for strength and durability. At ABC, we're always a better choice, delivering products built to last and service you can rely on. Visit our showroom at 1 Chanka Trace, El Socorro South, or call 638-7184 to make your dream home a reality.
Growing your food business begins here at Southern Food Basket Wholesale Distribution Center. The turnaround is fast, from container to cold storage to pickup trucks. And when we deliver, product integrity is maintained with our highly respected vehicle-powered chilling systems. So come on down to Southern Food Basket Wholesale Distribution Center, where a whole new experience awaits.
President of the NPTA, Walter Stewart, joins me, and let me extend congratulations. You were able to continue in your role and function elections last Saturday,
correct.
And you were re-elected as president. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good morning to you, and good morning to your viewership. Always happy to be on the Morning Brew.
And I would imagine with this new term, you will continue your assignment, your engagement, your mission of awareness?
Oh, certainly. That is really our goal. Our goal is really to be able to continue the trajectory of increasing our membership, our units, our schools coming on board and being affiliated with the National Parent Teacher Association. One of our main goals this term, our second term in office, is that particular objective and goal. Yeah.
You were at a function recently, and the Minister of Education was there. Any kind of nuggets of information and inspiration from the minister?
Well, the minister was our featured speaker last Saturday at the Marabella South Secondary School, and he gave a powerful and potent address. Some of the takeaways would include the Parental Responsibility Act coming on board. It's in draft form. He promises to share with us before it's taken to Parliament, but we are anxiously looking forward to that particular act. He also refers to the PTA, saying that the PTA voice matters. And of course, we are very, very appreciative and happy for that, because in the UNC's manifesto, now government policy, children are the center of the education system. And of course, parents are taking their rightful place as well in the scheme of things. So the minister and the government by extension are really on the right track. Regard, recognition, and respect for the national PTA and for the parents of Trinidad and Tobago.
Indeed, parents are stepping up, doing the right thing, but there are some parents too, from what I'm seeing via social media, who continue to drop the ball because of this lack of justice, this slow snail pace resolution that some schools would offer. And I saw a video recently of a mother going into the office and attacking some of the staff, roughing up one of the girls who allegedly would have interfered with her daughter. Matter of fact, they have suggested the lady is actually a law enforcement officer. So you're very familiar with the case. Certainly. And you know, I look at that interaction, and I'm so disappointed that a parent will have to, you know, jump out themselves. I guess that's coming from a place of sheer frustration. And I hope that going forward, images like that kind of that kind of losing of losing the cool will become something of the past.
Correct. And we want to appeal to our parents. Listen, JW, there are chains of command in the system, and we want you to use those chain of commands. They are not going to fail you. So that if your child is involved in any infraction, bullying, violence, or whatever, use the chain of commands for its right purpose. And of course, the matter will be solved amicably, I'm sure.
But you know, people get so emotional with their children, and people naturally would say, I would sit down in jail for my child, and these are the utterances we hear. And sometimes the chain of command, just going back to what I mentioned, snail space. You know, they find they're not getting the response, they're not getting the email, they're not getting a call back. Some of the schools are a little lax. They're trying to tell you, well, forget about it. They we'll figure it out. And that's what caused some. I mean, look at this particular fight we're seeing here from the Southland. I think this one went viral last week.
It did. Superior East, I'm told.
So the parent of the child on the receiving end of the blows here.
Yes.
The rage, the emotion, the wanting for retribution would be real.
Yes.
And as a parent, you would want to not only scramble the children, but the parents of the said child
as well.
I mean, this is quite alarming. And you know, we have police at schools, but we'll get to that in a few.
Certainly.
But what's your advice to the parents having to treat with this?
Good, very good. Let me just pause here. The collaboration that we now have with the ministry, which is almost like a phone call away, would seek to address some of these issues. And I want to appeal again strongly to the parents. If your child is involved in incidents like this one, contact the National Parent-Teacher Association and let us act on your behalf. Don't take the law into your own hands. It's detrimental not only to you, but to your child, to the system as well. So make use of the National Parent-Teacher Association through your unit president, your regional president, me myself as national president, so that we can bring solution quickly at that, relevant to what is taking place with your child at the school.
And I'm so happy that you're able to, you know, again remind folks that there is the intervention, there is that representation from the organization, because emotions run high.
As they are required to do from time to time.
What's the, again, we're a couple months in, this new process of having officers, peace officers at some of the sensitive schools. What are the results thus far? What's the feedback you're receiving?
Good. We continue to maintain a good relationship with the TTPS. Actually, last Saturday, we had the ACP South Central, Southwestern, ACP Michael Pierre, who represented the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Alistair Guevara, who was unable to attend the meeting. And speaking to ACP Pierre, you know, during and after the meeting, he emphasized the need for that collaboration, TTPS and NPTA and TTPS. And we have observed, to answer your question specifically, that there has been a slight reduction in the incidents of school indiscipline and school violence taking place. Not at the rate we anticipated. It's just about a month plus that we have, because it started on the 8th of September. So it's a month, well, heading into 2 months now. But we continue to monitor almost on a daily, weekly basis to see what is taking place in our schools. And we are hoping that by the end of this term, certainly by the end of the second term of this educational year, to be able to see a drastic improvement in our school indiscipline and school violence.
So there's still some fights breaking out while police are there at the school?
While they are at the school as well, exactly.
Ooh, wow.
This brazen act that we see taking place, where there seems to be now no regard, no respect for police, for law enforcement, is worrying and is damaging as well to the system. And it needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency.
Yeah, that's alarming. I would have assumed that officers already school a child might take it down, but this that's a credible revelation there.
Some instance. Listen, when I was a boy going to school and I saw the policeman on one side of the road, I crossed the other side. I was so fearful, apprehensive of the police, of law enforcement. Not at all. They are almost standing up to you as a police officer.
That's a cause for major concern.
It is indeed.
Let me ask, I want to take it back really quick to what was mentioned and the stance the NPTA continues to take in cases of school violence, and the call to reach out to the organization. Was there ever a case where you would have seen something, it went viral, and the NPTA probably reached out? You all would have been proactive in that regard, reaching out to just kind of do your own due diligence to inquire, well, what transpired here? Do you all also?
Well, let me just tell you that there was an incident in Mayaro in particular, Mayaro Secondary School, and I personally reached out to DCP Junior Benjamin, and within a matter of hours, really, the matter was resolved. So again, let me emphasize that we continue to maintain that collaboration, that consultative approach with the powers that be, and we stakeholders, and we want to consider teachers as stakeholders as well in education, and we are hoping that the collaboration will even strengthen and be more enforced.
What do you feel could be, and what's more or less from your conversations with the ministry? I'm hearing also, of course, the Minister of Homeland Security making utterances of, well, treating with students who run afoul of the school law and the system for them to be dealt with in a severe way. I heard the Commissioner of Police in his inaugural remarks saying that, hey, we're going to treat with students in a different way. Outside of a suspension process or whatever is on the books, what can be done to really engage some of the students who clearly probably troubled? I don't know what's the backstory if they're coming from sometimes troubled communities or troubled scenario. And chances are, most times, 9 out of 10, that's the case. What can we do at this point in time to at least, instill the discipline, but also to bring some level of reform? Because I believe there is a chance. They're young, they're developing minds. We can't give up on our young people.
Two layers. One, of course, is restoration, and the other is conflict management. Our students don't know how to amicably deal with solutions. There's not that aura of, let me see if I can sit down with my peer and solve this particular problem. Because you're going to always have conflict. Even in your very own homes, there are conflicts and there are disagreements. But of course, you learn to sit down in a sound state of mind and be able to solve and resolve the issues. So that there needs to be a series of conflict management courses, seminars, workshops even, starting even with the parents, and filtering into the schools as well, so that you know how to handle and deal with conflict. The other issue is restoration. Even if the child is penalized, and rightly so, because there are consequences to your action, the bottom line is there has to be that restorative element within the system so that you don't throw the baby and the bathwater out. But of course, you understand that, listen, you have done wrong, you have gone afoul of the system, but of course, there is still hope for you. It's not the end of the road. So restoration and, of course, conflict management.
Do you think probably bringing the parents in the classroom, because that was something that I remember my former principal at Belmont Secondary in the 90s, Mr. Glasgow, now deceased, he was a very out of the box strategy back then, but it caused the class and especially the troublemakers to kind of calm down, because the mom or dad had to sit down next to them in the classroom.
Exactly.
And it was very embarrassing for the students. And I guess for the parents too, frustrating too, because you'll have to take time off from work to be there present in the class. You think that kind of a radical suggestion like that could apply in this modern time?
Well, the minister did hint on Saturday about after school involvement of our parents and during school involvement of our parents, and we're taking him up on that as well, because we are taking, as I told you, he gave a potent, powerful message, and we're taking him up on almost all the issues that he outlaid at that particular conference. So yes, we are, as a matter of fact, last year's conference of delegates, I did approach, or I did make mention publicly, let the parents get involved as well in the schools. We can be able to supply or be able to provide a layer of support as well to our teachers, particularly before the school bell rings, during the intermission session, during the lunchtime session, and post the dismissal of schools.
Yeah, because, I mean, parents need to govern their children.
Certainly.
And there are many who are suggesting that, okay, why not hold the parents accountable, like really put some pressure on the parents, so the parents now, the onus will be on the mother or father to remind their child in a very forceful way that we are not accepting this kind of behavior, because you're putting me now in a bind.
Exactly.
You have some who suggested we should fine the parents, as in a financial fine every time a child fights. You hurt them in the pocket. There's some suggesting that parents are the ones to be dealt with in a very severe manner. I mean, clearly, these are all suggestions.
Correct. I have opined on several occasions as well, just what you were enunciating there, that parents should be held fully and totally responsible for the actions of their children. But of course, the jury is out on that, because some parents are trying very, very, very hard. But of course, the peer pressure, social media, the children, even if they are at the homes and they're being brought up in the way that they should go, still they run afoul and they do their own thing. So the jury is out, but we are looking at parents being held responsible for the actions of their children.
I want to remind the viewers that sometimes, yes, we will have these discussions and the focus would be on the students who might be going in a particular direction, but I still believe, and I think you would confirm with me this morning, because you will have better access to the data, that the majority of students are really well-mannered. We have a bright future ahead with our students. But there is, of course, as you know, when they run afoul, we will see that's the stuff that will go viral, unfortunately. Is there a sense of optimism from you, through your lens, going into the school system? Is there still that sense of optimism? Are we on the right path with our young people?
We are, you know, and let me put some blame on the media as well, because I had to reference a school in Tobago, the Scarborough Secondary School, and their results at CSEC 2025. Fantastic results. 9 subjects in a school, a public school in Tobago, got 100% passes. 9 subjects. Was that on the front page of any newspaper? Was that the headline of any? It was not. So that there seems to be an amplification, sensationalizing the wrong things that students do in schools. And we're not trying to hide them under the carpet, but there has to be a balance. Exactly, a balance. A middle ground where you are emphasizing the child's infractions, no problem. But when children do exceedingly well, as they are doing, please promote, market, let the public know what the children are doing as well.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that we will have to remind ourselves, and I will remind myself, and that's what I brought it up.
Good, I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Because, you know, I guess that's human nature. You know, we tend to lean towards, you know, want to see, or at least have conversations about what the students are doing. When many of us, we have to remind ourselves that fighting in school is not something recent. I would have seen some legendary fights in my time.
Back in my time, the same, exactly.
But they didn't have this to tape it. This is the capturing of these fights, and it's going viral. So I'm still, you know, very optimistic about our young people. I do lots of different feature. I will always do like a feature address every graduation season. And from what I see, I'm always very pleased.
Good. So it's the minority. It is really a minority of students who are giving the bad name to the system when they're involved in these infractions.
But in terms of the infraction and the at least recommendations so far with the officers, as we look to wrap things up, you would have mentioned that it's still very much early days to get a proper determination. But do you anticipate? We're into the first term of the academic school year. We're going into term number 2, term number 3. Do you anticipate this might be something ongoing, or this might just be experimental scenario for this particular school year?
Got you. And I would want to say again, categorically, that I'm hoping, I'm very optimistic that this is short term, and that by the end of this year, ending in July, it should be easy sailing from there on. That's my wish, that's my hope, and my desire to see that happen.
Any closing remarks, President Stewart?
Let me just thank all those, of course, of my membership who have reposed the confidence in me as your national president for the next 2 years. And, of course, accompanying me, my first vice, Mrs. Zina Ramatali, who needs no introduction, the warrior princess of the National Parent-Teacher Association. And also, the second vice president, also re-elected, Mr. Joseph Lindo from Tobago. Those 2 officers, in addition to my general secretary, Mrs. Kieran Glasgow, have been a buttress support to me in my leadership role, and I really want to congratulate the entire team, 13 of us, encourage them to also put their shoulder to the wheel and work in the best interest of the children, home and school, united for the good of the child.
President Stewart, congratulations again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So that means we'll continue to have our conversations.
Certainly.
Yes. Indeed. Of course, the president of the NPTA touching base with us. We get ready for another impactful conversation. It is Diabetes Awareness Month, this month of November. And in that regard, the president of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Dano, joins me on the Zoom line next.
Visit Tire Clinic Marketing, New Truck and OTR Tire Service Center at number 30 and 32 Montrose Main Road, Chaguanas. Call today at 665-8973 or 672-3419. Alignment services available. Tire Clinic Marketing, Truck and OTR Service Center. A tire for every need.
Do you think all dishwashing soaps are the same? With some do require more effort, and they don't wash as much. Try Dawn and discover its grease cleaning power. Dawn removes stubborn grease easier and faster than others. Additionally, it foam lasts 50% more. With Dawn, you use less product to clean more dishes and save with every wash. Dawn, triple grease cleaning power.
PRW's Thanksgiving sale is now on this November. We're giving thanks to God and all of our local customers. Up to 75% discount on selected items. Join us for our Family Fun Day on the 4th of November at or around West location. Come, have a fun day with us and enjoy refreshments, free giveaways, games, and massive discounted prices. Tell your family and friends. Call us today at 285-9779.
Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or simply someone who values their health, Omega XL can empower you to keep doing what you love. Don't let joint discomfort hold you back.
Live long, stay strong with the XL brand.
Muscle Rustle. Downy Unstoppables are laundry scent boosters. Add a capful before each wash and you'll be amazed. The blast of freshness that lasts and lasts. Whoa, what a blast! Even at the end of the day, you'll still be enjoying that blast of freshness in your clothes. Downy Unstoppables, the blast of freshness that lasts and lasts.
President of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Dano, joins me on the Zoom line. It's Diabetes Awareness Month, very important month ahead, and it's not just a November conversation. This is an all-year conversation, and Andrew always will take time to join me to engage in meaningful discussion, lots of information. Andrew, as always, thanks for being here, and great to see you.
Good to see you as well, Jason. Thanks again for inviting me, and of course, we usually do this in November, of course, and as you said, throughout the year we raise awareness, but November is Diabetes Awareness Month, so we have to put some extra emphasis in November.
Indeed. What are some of the major plans under the umbrella of the Diabetes Association for the month of November?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of activities planned for the month. So again, World Diabetes Day is November 14th, and that's really the bulk of our activities where we're going to be doing our National Day of Outreach. This is a Friday this year, and all of our branches throughout the country, about 20 branches from Scarborough in Tobago, from as far south as Erin, Point Fortin, and Nareva Mayaro, Rio Claro in the east, Port of Spain, Arima, everywhere. We're going to be doing a National Day of Outreach. So on that day, we have activities throughout the country. So look out for the activities that you have that are close to you, and you could be able to join that. Of course, we have our large fundraiser and awareness activity, which is our Tattle Run That 5K, and that is going to be on the 22nd of November. That's a Saturday this year. We are going to be at the paddock in Port of Spain, in Queen's Park, Savannah. The race is almost sold out, so we probably have about 20% of the packages left, and they're going very, very quick. So of course, that's what's going to happen on the 22nd. We also have our webinar, and our webinar is going to be on the last Wednesday of November, and that webinar is going to be focusing on diabetes in the workplace, because that's actually what the theme for this year is, diabetes in the workplace. So that's what we're going to be centering our awareness activities around this year, and that's what we're going to be doing for the month of November for all of the activities that we have planned out throughout the country.
Indeed. Thanks so much for the information, and feel free to give us reminders closer to the 14th. Describe for me the importance of your family history and more or less diabetes being in the bloodline, and what should be done once that information is known, so that you don't necessarily have to probably go down, well, you obviously don't want to go down the same road per se. So give us some advice in that regard. Family history, knowing your lineage.
And that's important to note, because many persons know that, of course, they may have diabetes in their family. And it's quite common in Trinidad to have a grandparent or a parent with diabetes. And we used to think about it as a older person's disease. And of course, now we know that many young people are being diagnosed with diabetes earlier and earlier. So if it is that you do have diabetes in your family, whether it is type 1 or type 2 diabetes, then it means that you are automatically at risk. So other risk factors would be including, of course, if you're overweight and you do have diabetes in your family, if you're a smoker, if you're a drinker, if it is that you don't exercise enough, and if it is you're a person of color, if you're an African or Indian descendant, automatically puts you at higher risk of having diabetes as well. So if it is that you do have those risk factors, that means that you need to take earlier steps, and some of the earlier steps would include annual screening, so screening for diabetes. And if it is that you are detected to have some sort of elevated blood sugars, that's where the interventions come in. Because the thing about type 2 diabetes particularly, this is the type of diabetes most people would have, is that once it's detected early enough in the stage of pre-diabetes, then you could be able to make some changes to reverse or have remission towards a healthier state. Now, that's important to note, but of course, testing is important. So here's where we have to raise awareness about HbA1c testing and getting an HbA1c test every year. That is going to allow you to know what your average blood sugars are, and it's going to allow you to know that if it is that you're pre-diabetic or if it is that you are in the region of diabetes, you could take some steps to get to a healthier state, and that's important to know.
I know some of the health implications when it comes to the drinking and smoking. It's it's well documented, but walk us through diet options and what we should at least, well, besides avoiding, but at least have in moderation, as it were. Walk us through some of the dietary options that are linked, or there is that correlation between your diet and diabetes.
Yeah. So of course we don't like to use the word diet, because when we say diet, people like to think it's something strict and they have to cut out certain things. And we often say that with diabetes and with any other disease, I mean, eating balanced meals, having all of your macronutrients, having everything on your plate in the right proportions, and that's important. And also having moderation, meaning that the things that aren't as healthy for you have less of. So of course we want to have meals which are lower in fats, especially saturated fats, trying to eliminate trans fats altogether, with healthier fats, with leaner meats, leaner types of foods, eliminating foods with high sugar content, and a lot of people think that natural sugars versus artificial or added sugars are some difference, but having a smoothie in the morning with all fruit blended up actually will raise your blood sugar pretty high if that smoothie doesn't have a lot of fiber. So having the fruit instead is preferred than blending it up or juicing it. So all of those little pieces of information, it's still sugar and it's still going to raise your blood sugars. So reducing the amount of sugar you consume, reducing the amount of fats, and of course increasing the amount of fiber is important. Reducing the types of foods that you consume. So again, the fried foods, again, the foods which are very, very sweet. Even the sauces that you add, and me and Trinidad, we love to use sauces, barbecue sauces and ketchup, and all of these sauces have a lot of added sugar, and it's something that you need to pay attention to in moderation, of course, not totally eliminating it, but being able to reduce and not be able to, overindulge.
Andrew, what are some red flags for those who listen to their body, for those who are in tune with their body? What physical changes you feel that would prompt you to go check a doctor to see, hey, something not feeling right, I wonder what's going on here? And sometimes because of that kind of intervention, you recognize, wow, you've been carrying diabetes for quite a while and you don't even know. So walk us through some of the red flags.
Yeah. So one of the key features of diabetes or pre-diabetes, and you'll start to feel it. You'll start to feel lethargic. You'll start to feel a little tired. You may start to feel extra thirsty. You may be going to the bathroom extra, and more than usual. That is, you may be waking up in the night to go to the bathroom when it is that you never did that before. And those are signs that you may actually have or have developed diabetes. What we want to talk about is pre-diabetes, because that's where we could actually make some change and prevent you from developing diabetes. So if it is that you've been gaining weight and you haven't, again, and it happens very slowly, that's a time to check. If it is that you have hyperpigmentation, especially in the back of the neck, in the folds of the skin, in the groin area, if you have darkening there, that darkening is actually called acanthosis nigricans, and that is actually because of hyperinsulinemia, high insulin caused by prediabetes. So if you have that, and that's particularly prominent in people of color, if you have that, that's a sign that you should be testing your blood sugar, and you should have some intervention there. So look out for those signs, and of course, if you do have any of those signs, you can go to the Diabetes Association. We could get an HbA1c test for you. We could direct you to one of our endocrinologists, or you could go to any health center in Trinidad and Tobago, and they could be able to perform those tests for you as well.
How quick you get the results, Andrew?
So HbA1c is pretty quick, and now we have technology where we have point of care HbA1c. So within 3 minutes, you get the result. At the Diabetes Association, we have one of the more robust tests. So you should be able to get that test, that result within a day, and that test is extremely accurate because, of course, we're now able to tell what your blood sugars are. Just for people who don't know, your HbA1c result is going to tell you your average blood sugar for the last 3 months. A number that we want to look for is under 5.7. Under 5.7 is healthy. Between 5.7 and 6.5 may indicate that you have pre-diabetes, and this is the region that's most important because we detect somebody between 5.7 and 6.5. Here's where you can make some changes. And within 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, that number could go down, which means that you're less at risk for developing diabetes. But over 6.5 is where we tend to diagnose diabetes, and it can go pretty high sometimes. Some people have A1Cs of up to 15, which means their average blood sugar might be 400. 500, depending on the time.
What are the changes you'll have to really embark on, Andrew, especially if it's pre-diabetes, so you can reverse it?
Yeah. Well, definitely, one of the key features is, of course, your weight, because actually excess weight, excess fat is one of the key reasons we develop type 2 diabetes. So doing things to reduce your weight, and the thing is, even though some people may think, well, they're pre-diabetic, but they don't have extra weight. They're not looking overweight. And that's because the fat actually may be accumulating around the organs. So it's important to note that, and important to speak to your doctor about, and the doctor will be able to measure that. Now losing weight is most important. And of course, you do a lot of things to lose weight. Improving the diet. And here's where consultation with a nutritionist or a registered dietitian is important, to be able to figure out how much food, or how much type, or the different types of food you should have, so that you're not malnourished, but of course you're able to lose weight. And of course, increasing physical activity is most important. Diet is more important than physical activity though, but it goes hand in hand. So increase physical activity, of course, doing things that you're not supposed to do as much, which is quitting smoking, cutting off alcohol. No amount of alcohol is safe anymore. Well, now that we know that no amount of alcohol is safe, so cutting alcohol, quitting smoking, increasing sleep. And of course, I do want to commend the Ministry of Health for taking this initiative, which and of course the government of Trinidad and Tobago, where they actually try to raise the duties on alcohol and cigarette smoke, because it really is contributing to the majority of our NCDs in Trinidad and Tobago. So the thing is, taking that step hopefully will be able to discourage persons from drinking and smoking as much, and could probably see some sort of increase in health in some of these people.
As we pull the curtains down, Andrew, in the couple of seconds that remain, how can we contact the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago?
Sure, and you can reach us at our phone number. Of course, it's 607-3288. 607-3288, that's the association's number. You can visit us at www.diabetes-tt.org, and of course you could visit us in Shogunas. Remember, our 5K is on the 22nd. Go to www.tatilrundat.com to register for our 5K, and of course all of the activities that we have is going to be on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. So we're looking out to seeing all of you all there and participating in our events.
President Dano, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for touching base. And I know you're going to be doing some great work during the course of this month and throughout the entire year to raise more awareness.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Always a pleasure. That's the President of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, just in time for this month of awareness and conversation. We come back to wrap things up, some housekeeping, and your Something to Think About segment before we officially pull the curtains down at 8 a.m. See you soon.
Next on Keeping It Real Estate.
Welcome to Heartland. Yes. So this will be your living space. Of course, you could put dining here, living there.
I like that. I like that space.
OMG. This is the one for me. So now that we start, I just have so much fun doing it. Let's check. Patricia and Thalia have nothing on us if we really want to bicker.
Ask her.
about the boy she ran away with.
Oh, I can't be using my mistakes against me.
Real estate is really about people.
Don't worry, girl. Yes, it's all just coming from a place of love.
New episodes Mondays at 8 p.m. Brought to you courtesy First Citizens, Guardian General Insurance Limited, Courts, Jameson, and D-Best Toys.
In the ever-changing media landscape, we at Guardian Media strive always to put you, our viewers and readers, first.
We strive to uphold the time-honored tenets of responsible journalism.
For us, accuracy is key.
And in our reporting, we strive not only to be first, but fair,
impartial,
and to uphold journalistic integrity.
Above all, we are accountable to you, and we must respect the views of our audience. That is our solemn contract with you.
Keen attention to detail,
rigorous verification of facts,
use of credible sources, and sound editorial judgment.
Keep track of our editorial policies and guidelines, including our corrections policy, by logging on to www.guardian.co.tt for more.
Welcome back. Let's remind you ways to contact us, ways to make the request to join me live on set or via the Zoom link. You're sending an email to tmb@cnc3.co.tt. Nice, short, sweet, and we'll make it happen for you. See you soon. Let's head across to our social media handles: Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter. That's where I get lots of my news. And, you know, we've had these stories, we put it out, and we stay on top of all your developments, local, regional, and indeed international developments. Another place to stay on top of the news is on the CNC3 mobile app, your #1 source for verified breaking news. That's right. All your favorite content on demand and programming details readily available. Download the app today. It's a must-have on your smartphone. That's right. Let's head now to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, 108 years of legacy, setting the tone and establishing ourselves part of the fabric, trusted, respected. And this is across the border. And all our top stories every day, we stay committed to the cause. Kudos to the entire Guardian team. You can visit guardian.co.tt to enjoy your digital Guardian. And you can get it right there on your phone, your tablet, your computer. That's right. Let's get into our food for thought. Words to inspire on this Monday morning, Monday the 3rd of November, 2025. So when you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot. Tie a knot in it and hang on. So they said when you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and hang on. Interesting one. Yeah, I mean, this, I guess, is speaking towards hope and not giving up. And, you know, that's what we have to do going forward. We are really in some uncertain times. We have never been here before, but we can't give up on our country and our region and ourselves. And I think it's important to stay connected with all the information. I think it's important also for the government, those behind the wheel, to keep us in the loop, even if there's nothing major developing. At least have that conversation, because I don't think anybody wants to go through what happened last Friday. I know Tabakit would have mentioned if there's nothing to report, well, there's nothing really to say. And I understand, and I respect that opinion. But at the same time, I think it's important just to stay in the mix, stay in the fold, keep talking to the nation and explaining to us, okay, we'll be all right, because based on what we're seeing happening around us, it's very, very uncertain times. But we'll leave it there for now. We'll come back tomorrow for more. God spare. Thanks as always for tuning in, and have yourselves a productive and safe day, Trinidad and Tobago. See you tomorrow.
Brew is brought to you by Omega XL. Live long, stay strong.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of CNC3.
Unlock the secret to natural recovery and sustained performance with the XL5. Join us in this unique presentation by Great HealthWorks as cricket legend Andre Russell reveals his comprehensive approach to